welcome everyone to week two's podcast. This is Gone Critical, and this week I'm standing in for the Mighty T, who is our usual compere. So I'm feeling a bit daunted wearing these big boots, but hopefully we'll go very well. We're very happy to welcome PT Pie.
Thank you.
He's the inaugural member of the discussion tonight, so welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
We've also got Laurie Holden here manning the recording, and of course Magpie Girl is going to make sure that we're all behaving. Or is that still side one?
His sister, I told you, his sister. Hi, everybody.
All right, so we thought we'd start off by a bit of a review, PT, of last week's game. Obviously, we're all very happy. I think whether we exceeded expectations, we at least met them. And I thought the most obvious thing that was back was that manic pressure, which really typified 2010, 2011 and the good times when Buckley's teams have been going. I thought that was great to see back. What did you take mainly out of the game?
Personally, I thought that the effort and intensity of the team as a whole was much greater than pretty much anything we saw for the entirety of 2014.
Yeah.
The cohesiveness as the group, everyone knew where to be, when to be there, where to go, seemed to have a much greater understanding of our vaunted game plan.
Mm. And also quite a contrast to what we'd seen in the weeks leading up to the season, which had left us all a bit worried, I think, about what we were going to see. I guess the pre-season's always a bit of a trick, as in you never really know what you're seeing is it the real thing. But I must say I had concerns, especially after the Footscray game. What were your thoughts there of our pre-season?
I felt relatively confident up until that Bulldogs game, to be honest. That was pretty much close to one of the worst games I'd seen from our lads in quite some time. The intensity again that was up against the Lions was certainly lacking in the Bulldogs. It was abysmal. It was absolutely. I felt ashamed watching it, sitting there wondering what's going on because there was no effort.
Yeah, which was a pat in the back to the coaching staff, because whatever they were doing, something was held back, because it was such a contrast to the way we stepped out after about the first 10 minutes against the Lions. We really switched on, and it was a fantastic effort from there. Out of the individual players, who impressed you?
Obviously, Steele Sidebottom was in mine best on ground.
Yes. Yep.
Up until he got injured, but players that had a massive lift in intensity throughout the game and on their previous form. Obviously, Jared Blair was another super effort from the little fella. On top of Jared Blair, I think effort's got to go to Travis Cloak. Might not have had the impact on the scoreboard that we would like to see from him, but his efforts around the ground were superb. He got up, got on his bike like we all sort of hope and pray for him to do, and he just absolutely delivered. Played his best game for quite some time and looked damn good and dangerous doing it.
Mm. One thing going into that match that I did worry about a bit was I thought we could have, even in the wet weather, I thought we could have been light on for one big man with Grundy, who was the other bloke I was very impressed with, Grundy, especially his first half. But Grundy and then White as his backup, and also Travis's backup. But I thought he was the other bloke, Jesse White, a maligned character. But if he can give that each week, if he can give that effort and that what did he take? Half a dozen marks, kicked a couple of goals. That will be all we require from him.
Definitely, it's more about intensity. Again, from everyone, they all looked like players that just wanted to be there. They wanted to play. They played hard, and that's how we need Collingwood to play. That manic pressure that you were talking about, but it applies with and without the ball. Mm-hmm. When we have that manic pressure and we're chasing and tackling, we also seem to have excellent overlap run and getting into space. When that's down, it's noticeable that every facet of our game is down.
Yes, yeah. The other thing that stood out to me was the back line. Great to see Nathan Brown back and just a steady influence down there. And Jack Frost, both of them, neither of them were outstanding at all, but just stamped themselves as ready to go for the season.
Quite solid, both of them. They
And-
were, might not have sort of stood up and said, I'm a superstar, but they certainly didn't let anyone down. And they also gave the impression, of course, that they were going to be 100% safe when the ball came down there. There was no panic kick out of defence, which we've seen far too often.
Yes, yeah. And the other three blokes that we should touch on, I guess, were the three debutants for the club, Jack Crisp, Travis Varco and Jordan De Goey. All had their moments. I think De Goey really didn't get much of a chance. Varco, nice mark and goal, did a couple of nice things. But Jack Crisp was probably the one that impressed me most. I think a few people on the board this week have had varying views of him, but I really like the strength of his attack on the ball and the strength of his body around the contests.
He's a solid lad, isn't he? Certainly can understand why some people on the Brisbane board were quite upset to lose him after a wonderful display of toughness and a full-on ability. He just showed that he really wanted it. It was pretty impressive to watch. I've got to be honest.
And Taylor Adams was probably our last man to talk about in a way. The old Beamer, gone to greener pastures, he thought. He was put back in his box to a degree by Adams, which is a very encouraging sight. Yeah,
I think Taylor's really lifted his game in respect to his discipline and knowing his limitations. He certainly still had a few issues with his disposal, but nowhere near as many as he has had when he's got that many touches previously. Before you would sort of think 30, maybe 40% of his disposals would be iffy. Last Saturday night it was less than half of that. That's for sure. I was really impressed with what he delivered and how he delivered it, more so than the actual job that he did on beams.
Yeah, he's an impressive player in tight, and as you say, that's a continuation of that tidying up a disposal and lessening obvious clangers, and he's becoming the player we want him to be.
Yeah, most definitely. I think no one could have asked for anything more than what he delivered, particularly against a player the quality of Dane Beams, and to see him so rendered useless almost. Yeah. I mean, Beams was reduced to a see ball, get ball, and give it off. That's all he could do, and that's impressive for Taylor Adams. We're very, very impressed.
Yeah, well, that's right. Beams was never able to do anything. There was no standout moment for him where you just said, well, there's a class player at work.
No, not at all.
Just a possession game for him.
Yeah, he looked like what he actually looked like, and he got sort of reduced to in my eyes was what's his name, Matthew Boyd from the Bulldogs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just one contested ball and gave a hand pass out, and to be able to do that to probably one of the top 10 players in the AFL, that's a credit to Taylor Adams and also to the coaching staff. Robert Harvey and Scotty Burns take a bow, because whatever you've done in the off-season with Taylor Adams, he has stepped his game up quite a lot.
And then leading from there, I guess the other big issue of last week was the conditions in Brisbane. Very tough game to play in, the heat and the humidity. It sounds like our boys really did suffer at the end. And the last, I must say, sitting there watching it, I thought when they got within 11 points or whatever they got within. And 6 minutes to go, it was really, I thought it was a line ball game by that stage. It was anyone's game who wanted it, really. So for us to stand up through that time was fantastic. But my concern is, well, what's it taken out of us for this week?
Yeah, it's. I think it's definitely going to have an effect. You never write that off. I think I read an article earlier. Travis Cloak lost 5 kilos of weight there. That's just fluid weight. So that's bordering on dehydration. That takes a huge toll. When you're hearing those kind of figures and you're seeing the effect as blatantly obvious as it was there, you know that the next week, look, the boys will give everything they've got, but they'll definitely suffer for that. In saying that, though, so many players set PBs, had their best pre-season that they've had in years. Yes. I would expect it to be not quite so much of an issue, and I would really want to see a bit more from our lads. I think we can deliver. I'm not sure if we can beat Adelaide, but what I do know is we can certainly make them work.
Yeah, which leads us to this week's game. So teams are now out, and probably no great surprises in the selection. I think there's a few things to discuss. We've got Seedy and Broomy in, which are two players that that really do sort of fill you with a bit of hope about what they can become. De Goey being out, to me, is no surprise. I don't mind. I know a few people on the board this week have said, well, why is he get in for 1 week? I think a brand new player in for 1 week and send him back to the VFL, he won't be worried by that, I wouldn't have thought.
Nah, not at all.
And obviously, Sidey's the massive loss. I mean, that's, as you say, BOG last week and our second best mid, I guess. We've left Swanee out too. We could have discussed him, but we love Swanee. But how did you see those selections this week, and would you have done anything differently?
I sort of looked into maybe bringing an extra tall in, perhaps Corey Galt, more so just to stretch the Adelaide defence. But I can also see the value in bringing in two classy midfielders, and I'd say Seedsman will be played as a midfielder. I see him sort of playing on the wing and maybe sort of covering off down back when needed, because our back six was pretty solid last week.
Yeah, well, he's not really needed back there this week. I think I agree with you, but he'll be on the wing. And the other one, I do feel like I can see why last week we went with what I would consider one less tall. That was in the humidity and the wet in Brisbane. This week on Etihad, I think it's a big ask for Grundy again to carry the ruck and hope that Jesse White can be the foil to both Travis and Grundy. So I agree. I would have thought Galt. I thought Galt was going to be selected. I would have thought, and I wonder whether he could be a late in.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. I haven't seen who the emergencies are for us yet.
I think he is Paddy Konesis and no Kennedy. Kennedy's actually not named in any team, and so he apparently had his knee wrapped up at the end of the VFL match. So just a little question mark there. Dwyer is the other emergency, so Konesis, Dwyer and Galt. And apparently Dwyer had a great game in the VFL the other day, so he must have been close to selection.
That's the rumours that I've heard, that he was pretty super. And I was looking forward to seeing him run out, because I think he's another player that can really give us a lot, particularly with side bottom out. His ball use and his delivery into the forward 50 is superb.
Mm. And Broomhead's the one that it probably excites us all. I mean, I'm a bit disappointed with Broomhead's pre-season. I thought, what he came off last year, I was really looking for him to make a pretty strong impression in the pre-season and stamp himself as best 22 without doubt. Now, he hasn't really done that, but he's come good the last couple of weeks. But he does tantalise you a bit, and I want to see what he can do. I just hope he can frank the expectation. Well, now we'd like to introduce a really good segment to our podcast this week, because we've got some visitors from the Adelaide board. We've got Specious Argument, Phoenix and Nicky Noo. So we're going to do a little combo assessment of the game. So thanks a lot, guys and girls. Welcome aboard.
Hey, guys.
Good to be here.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now, your team was pretty spectacularly impressive on the weekend, so you must be approaching this trip to Melbourne with a fair degree of confidence. What's the general feeling in the Adelaide board?
We had a nice long cold shower after last week, so it's only round one. As Gazza says, just a very small sample size. So, we're quietly confident maybe.
Yeah, I'd like to think that we're a 10-goal better side than North, but I think they started very poorly, and I think they aren't as bad a side as showed up on the weekend.
Yeah.
I also think what most of us on the board are looking for is consistency, because that's not what we had last year. We were up and then we dropped games we shouldn't have. So I think a lot of us are looking forward to this game just to see what consistency we're going to get out of the team.
Sure. From looking on the outside, if I was an Adelaide supporter, the two things that stood out to the rest of us and worries us the most are two blokes named Taylor and Dangerfield. That must have set you going.
That was acceptable.
Understatement of the century.
So looking forward to what do you see as your strengths coming in this week, and where do you think you can beat us?
Well, I think midfield rotations, we're building a fairly solid engine room coming off Jacobs out of the ruck. I think we'll do quite well there.
And we're also mixing it up with bringing Eddie Betts actually into the midfield. So he sometimes starts off the back of the square, sometimes he starts actually in the midfield rotation. That's got to scare a lot of other teams with a player of his calibre and quality just running through the midfield and then legging it forward.
PT Pie, what about from our end of things? Where are we going to threaten the Crows this week?
I think North Melbourne were very poor with the pressure they applied to the ball carrier, and I can't see Collingwood letting Adelaide get away with it. North Melbourne, they weren't there as far as pressure was concerned, and it'll be a whole different level. It'll be interesting to see how the Crows back it up, because they were super impressive at the contested ball and applying pressure. But in that one period during the third quarter against North Melbourne, when they actually played, the Crows didn't cope with it. They just couldn't match it at all. I think there was about 4 clearances where the Crows didn't even get a touch on the ball, and it just came straight down to all the pressure applied and the clear tap out, bang, away they went. They lost the contested ball, and it was only one quarter, and it was almost unsustainable for North Melbourne. But if that happened, at any other time during the game, it would have been a 40-point closer game, and perhaps completely different outcome. So I don't think the Pies will let them get away with it, and I would be very surprised if Adelaide be able to get the run on and keep that wave of momentum that they did against North Melbourne.
Yeah, I think you're right. From our point of view, we were very happy to see our sort of manic work that we did defensively against Brisbane, albeit in tough conditions. So we hope we haven't lost too much of that coming forward this week. But I hope we curb some of the brilliance of the Adelaide team this week. To you, Adelaide guys and girls, did you see anything of Collingwood, and where do you think the danger lies with the Pies?
I saw a little bit, but unfortunately it was up against that West Coast Western Bulldogs game, so I tended to be a little bit more watching that one. I'm just a little curious as to what you guys think that the heat in Brisbane, whether that will affect your team at all because of that 6-day turnaround.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a concern. I think Trav Cloak apparently lost 5 kilos through the game, so definitely energy-sapping game. So, our sports scientist guys will have been working overtime for the recovery this week. How much, first game of the season, how they recover, it's going to be one of the question marks in the game.
The magic glove will solve all our issues.
It was interesting watching Essendon. It was really interesting watching Essendon from where I'm sitting anyway, seeing what a preseason actually does for players and seeing how tired they got and what those games actually get you.
Definitely, yeah. It's a very valid point because a lot of people underestimate it. It was even more apparent when you watched the great G. Ablett and the effect it had on him. He was coming back from an injury, and I can understand a slight hesitation even from one as great as him. But it was something special to see him drop balls that he would have taken 99,999 times out of a million. He just dropped them cold. It was, Yeah,
he just didn't have that touch, which is what you kind of need.
I was going to say, speaking of injuries, are you guys looking at going in with a near full strength side?
We've got it. We've lost Steele Sidebottom, who was probably our best on the weekend, broken his thumb. We've got a few of the longer term injuries, so we're not at full strength, but we're not terrible. We've got a couple of our young South. We've loaded up on South Australians the last few years. So we've got Tim Broomhead coming back in, we're all pretty excited about, but he hasn't had a great pre-season. But hopefully he can put that behind him because he does look a real player of the future potentially. And Brodie Grundy also stood up on the weekend and did a great job. So it's a big ask for him to come against Jacobs this week, but he's developing.
Who did Kennedy shoot to not get selected?
I think he played on the VFL on the weekend, but I think he's hurt his knee, so he's not named at all this week.
That's exactly what I've heard. He took a bit of a knock.
He and Broomhead are both players we want to see come on, but it'll be Broomy this week that probably kicks half a dozen.
From afar, it's always surprised me how difficult Ben's found it to get into your team.
Yeah, look, a lot of us feel the same way because he sparkles at times, and he's been the sub a lot of the time. He's had problems with his calves, where he's had this compartment syndrome and had trouble running out games and had surgery last year. But we're certainly looking to him to step up this year. We don't want to make him homesick or anything.
No, certainly don't want to give back.
We could do that Dangerfield-Kennedy swap, though.
Certainly don't want to give back our stars, our future stars, that's for sure. The three SA boys that we got in the draft a couple of years back.
We like that little Dangerfield. He can stay around for a little bit longer. He seems to have some, something about him. Just, we think there's something there to go forward with.
Do you think he's staying?
I think he is, but I'm a Southland legend supporter at heart.
Yeah, personally, I in the off season, I felt very strongly that he was staying. I've drifted a little bit towards going, but I'm probably about 50-50 now. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, can I just ask for a second there? If Dangerfield goes, given that James Aish is holding off contract talks, is James Aish coming to Adelaide?
He can come to Adelaide even if Dangerfield stays.
Well, can you fit him in that squad with that talent? Just sliding Rory Sloane, Walker, all those boys.
Yeah,
can you fit Aish in on top of Dangerfield?
Yeah. We've got, I think a lot of clubs actually are aware that Adelaide has been banking money. We have quite a nice little pot of cash.
We had a lot of money set aside for Tippett. I think we were looking at paying him $900,000 a year, and we didn't really sign anyone to replace him. We lost a couple of players around the same time, and we signed Betts for $500. So I think we've front loaded a lot of contracts. So I do think we do have the war chest to go after pretty much anyone.
Or the other strategy is to give Danger the big offer, isn't it? I guess that's your first priority.
No, we're actually a little bit like Hawthorn and Collingwood, Geelong, in that paying unders. We've kind of traditionally done that. That kind of started with Neil Craig. The rumours doing the round here is that no matter what anybody offers Dangerfield, we've got enough in the pot that we're just going to match it. So I think if that happens, that basically means that because he's a restricted free agent, that gives us a slightly sort of better option.
Be the first. No one's matched an offer yet, though, for a restricted free agent, and they've stayed, have they? I don't think.
No, not yet.
I'm interested to see when the first one is going to happen. I think if a manager lets a player get to that point, I think they haven't done their job.
That's exactly right.
Yes,
and it also comes down to the fact that if he's willing to put himself out on the market and tacitly accept a deal, do you want that bloke at your club?
It's hard to keep.
No matter how good he is he worth it if his heart and soul's not in it?
We had that bit with Beams this year when he said, even he was still under contract, but when he said he was going to go, you do your best deal.
Yeah, I think you can't have a player playing handcuffs, but and the other thing is Dangerfield worth north of $1 million? I don't know that he is. I think he had a couple of bad seasons in a row. I think the reason he's not signing is because of that. I think it's devalued him a touch. I think he's trying to have a good season this year to bank the maximum dollars.
Yeah.
Can he also continue at the rate that he's going? He is such an explosive player, but I've seen him play quite a few games, been more than impressed, and then I watch him go in for a hard ball, and he comes out of it wincing, and he gets back up. He's mentally tough, a lot like Luke Hodge, I would say, but the wear and tear he puts on his body, I don't know if he's going to have the durability if he continues to play the way he does.
There's actually been a big change we've seen in his game plan if you watched the game last weekend. There was Out of Town Crow on our board actually did a little screen cap of one of the clearances, and from it, ball comes loose out of the centre. If Dangerfield leans down to go and get that hard ball, but Douglas is coming in at a better option, Dangerfield actually backs out, which is very unusual for him. But then he goes forward to become that linking player who's then free. So he's actually changed his game. He's becoming a bit more of an outside player, and we saw that quite a bit on the weekend.
Well, we'll wait and watch. Now, the other thing I was interested to hear from you guys is, Adelaide Oval now is becoming a bit of a fortress. How much difference does the trip across to Etihad? We'd love to have you on the G, really, because we love that. But Etihad, how much does that detract from what the Crows can do?
No, we've traditionally played fairly well at Etihad, so it doesn't hold any fears for us. And I think there's big any chance we can actually get to play on the G, we want to, because we don't play on there very often at all, and just to get the players used to it, because it's a different shape than Adelaide. I think Etihad's a little bit more like Adelaide. It is that little bit narrower, so it suits our style of play.
But I guess the other thing is that hometown. I haven't been there yet, and I want to go, but just listening to the noise off the TV is impressive. Of Adelaide Oval. It
is designed to keep that sound in.
It's good. It's also, I think, I read the other day that Collingwood and Adelaide are 3-3 at Etihad.
Yeah.
So no real advantage to either team.
I guess it's whether you think you're a lot. How much does Adelaide Oval give to the team? I guess is what I'm getting at.
Well, we know there's an awful lot of our Crow supporters coming over for the weekend, so please treat them nicely. We actually do have quite a large base that lives in Melbourne. So there is always, I know I've gone over for games, and there's sometimes probably about a third of the crowd. Sometimes depending on who you're playing, is actually Adelaide supporters. So there's a fair bit of noise that's still generated.
Yeah. All right. And so what's your predictions? Can we pin you down to something?
I think we can win. I'm not too sure, though, about the margin for me, because I'm still waiting to see whether there's that consistency or not. I think if we can get on top in the midfield, then I reckon it could be a 4 to 5 goal game.
Personally, I think it'll take your start to really have a special game to go. I think we're going to do by 10 goals plus.
I certainly hope that's not the case. I'd say that's with the effort and intensity shown last week, that'd be disappointing. But if we fail, if we can't sustain that manic pressure and intensity, then definitely it's possible. I doubt it's going to happen though.
I think it might be. I think Adelaide will rightly into favourites, but it's a hard game for me to call. I mean, I'm not going there expecting a win, but I won't be surprised if we can knock you off.
Yeah, I think everybody's kind of right. This probably might be the match of the round, and that's what most of the pundits seem to be talking about. You know, Collingwood, can they back it up? Can Adelaide sustain that pressure again? I think most of the interest from the neutrals is going to be on this game.
Yeah.
I totally agree. They're both teams that you would hate to face on their best day.
Yeah. And Specious,
big forwards, strong midfields.
Yep. Yeah, both. Sorry, go ahead. Big matchups in all those departments. You know, Talia on Cloak. I think Frost will probably play on Tex Walker. And those two matchups are critical to whichever team's going to win.
Who will play on Dangerfield?
I don't think anyone will.
Jack Crisp maybe could run with him. You need someone bigger.
Can Crisp go forward? Mean actually be a defender, because we're playing him up forward quite a bit too.
Well, he's only played one game, but he played a bit off the half back line for Brisbane last year, so he's new.
Yeah, Danger goes deep. Danger plays out of full forward, so and with that speed coming straight at the ball, that's a little scary proposition.
I think probably the scarier proposition is your midfield getting on top and giving him the service that he got. I would be, if it's me looking on the game, I'm worried. I'm worried about Sloane and Douglas getting those good early clean possessions right from the guts. That's too scary to contemplate. And then having Rory Laird or Brodie Smith getting the dish off and absolutely pumping that thing in with a laser-like pass.
Cam Ellis-Yolman, who played pretty much his first game last year, and what most people don't realise, he's actually taller than Dangerfield. He did 5 beautiful little passes, like bullet passes to Tex on his chest. He actually played last week when he had gastro. So if he's actually well this week, we're kind of looking forward to see what he actually pulls out.
Yeah, it's a scary prospect.
When you're overconfident.
We've got a couple of blokes named Pendlebury and Swan who are building into the season nicely too. So may not be one-way traffic in the midfield.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that first possession and who can get on the outside the cleanest. because your
I
guys
reckon
can
that's what it's
deliver
going to
it.
be.
Your guys can deliver it, and we've got a couple of blokes. Well, our delivery will. I don't think it'll ever match what Adelaide can provide, but just the basic intensity that Collingwood can lock the ball in, I think that'll be enough.
Our big fear is our defence. We've got Talia, who's exceptional, but we've got Hardigan, who's going to make mistakes. He's still only learning. He's, I think, 20 games or something he's only ever played. So with him being a second key defender, and then our younger ones. When North got the run on last week, that's when we lost Brown and we had to rejig. He's apparently come up from the corky and will play. So that's going to be interesting to me as well as to whether that defence can really hold together, because you might be able to exploit us there, because we're still a little unsure as to how they work well together, particularly under pressure.
We've got an evolving forward line too coming, because Cloak we're expecting a bigger season from. Jesse White we're hoping, and Elliott and Fasolo, Broomhead. Now we've got a couple of players down there with a bit of class, so they could get off the leash a little bit.
I've really enjoyed watching Jamie Elliott play. That leap he's got on him is kind of special.
Yeah, it's a bit uncanny for a little fella.
Isn't it what? It's he'd give Chad Wingard a run for his money for some of those big jumps.
And he's not as much as a tool as Wingard.
Specious, the other thing on our board that, of course, we're very interested in is the happiness of one little girl.
Yeah, I've been having a bit of audio troubles. I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah, certainly can.
Excellent. So Hayley's the name that we've been going with, so I'll stick with that. We've got tickets coming. I think the club's expressing them, so they should be here tomorrow. But I mean, either way, we'll be at the game. First AFL game with me, first game ever. So we'll be there in the brand new Pies jumper that she's got, and I'll be wearing my red, yellow, and blue. So if you see us out there, say hello and try not to hate me too much.
It'll be great to see, mate. I hope
great
you
to
get
see,
some
and
pictures
we're all hoping she goes home very happy.
I'll definitely be putting some pictures up, but if we win, try not to flame me too much.
You may have dropped out again.
I have to say, from the Adelaide, but just seeing what you guys did, absolute kudos to your board. That was just fabulous the way you all pulled together, and I think that's why most of us are on forums like Big Footy.
Yeah, it's and just doing this tonight, the same thing. It's nice to spread a bit of the love before a bit of the rivalry.
It is. These are the things that make the footy worthwhile.
Oh, well and truly.
Yeah. Well, I think we've lost Specious, but Phoenix and Nikki New, thank you very much for your chat tonight. We wish you all the best, but we hope you're not smiling on after the game.
Probably reverse ditto from us.
Okay.
Yeah, our pleasure, mate. Thanks guys. It's been good fun.
Nice to meet you all.
Okay.
Good luck on the weekend.
Yeah, good luck. See you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No injuries.
Yes. Okay. Final thing we want to discuss tonight was the VFL match coming up. I think we're up against Ballarat, is that correct? And looking at the side, named a pretty strong side. Ben Reid's back in, which is pretty exciting. I must say I had some doubts about whether we were playing any games there with him, but if he's back again, it seems he's on track. Witsy was named. Marsh, Moore, DeGuy, Maynard, Carnesis. So there's a lot to see there this week. Ben Kennedy's the only notable absentee. What are you thinking about that game, PT?
I'm looking forward to seeing it. It'll be, or at least reading about it, and as I don't get to see too much of the VFL, but it'll be interesting to see Ben Reid make a comeback, long awaited, and hopefully he has some impact on the game. I don't care if he's not a superstar. I just hope he looks comfortable and gets through it unscathed.
Yeah, just as long as his legs are hanging together at the end.
Yes.
Any of the youngsters? Who of the youngsters are you wanting to hear most about?
For mine, the most exciting prospect for me is Nathan Freeman. I liked what I've seen of him, and I like the way he goes about his footy. He is very similar. The comparisons I've heard are Nathan Jones and Patrick Dangerfield, and I don't think you get two better comparisons at winning contested footy and playing the game the way it should be played.
Yeah.
Obviously, probably the difference between the two would be the fleetness of foot between Dangerfield and Nathan Jones. But by God, Nathan Freeman's got that in spades, and he's got their toughness.
Mm. Yep. For me, I think Darcy Moore is the intriguing young player we've got because I grew up watching his old man play, and he was fantastic. But I saw him play his VFL game last year, and his athleticism is extraordinary for a 6'6" bloke, and he hits the pack very hard.
He was playing really well last Saturday. Taking a lot of chest marks, and he runs really well.
It almost seems like the VFL is not hard enough for him, if that makes sense. Like he's not stretching himself to play in the VFL.
Yeah. Well, that'd be a good sign. I mean, if he can step into that grade and feel immediately comfortable. Do we see him playing later in the year?
Definitely. I can't imagine him not. You get a player of that talent, particularly a key position player that can perform so well so early, he'll be out there. He's been compared to Joe Danaher. He may not have the natural talent of say, Joe Danaher, but he definitely will more than make up for that with his application.
Yeah. And the other thing he's got is he runs too. I mean, he's a 49-second 400-metre runner, that's elite pace. 6'6".
The athleticism that you touched on earlier is certainly most impressive.
Yeah, so he has to play at some stage. So that's going to be pretty exciting. De Goey hopefully just steps back into the fray and continue his development. And Paddy Karnesis.
Yeah, he's another one that Brisbane would be sorry to have lost. But he's always been one of those guys that's had talent in spades and just seemed to have, I think to put it politely, he's just lacked the application. He seemed to. I'd put him as a lazy player, perhaps. That might be unfair on him, but that's the way he's come across. Yeah, that's the way he's come across. Hopefully, now back in Melbourne, closer to family, at a club with an environment that can hopefully provide him what he needs to let go of whatever it was that was holding him back, and really give him the drive to succeed, because talent is there in spades.
Talent's there, but he has to. I think he has to. I hope he realises, and I hope he's looking and saying, "This is my make or break season," because he can't afford not to play AFL football this year. He's a fifth-year player, so he has to produce this year for mine, and I hope he does it.
But yeah, you don't want to go through your career as a depth player.
Yeah, no. All right. Well, hopefully people can get down to see the VFL team on the weekend, and those who are there, we hope can provide us some good reports. We're going to sign off now. So, PT Pie, it was fantastic to have your inaugural contribution, and hopefully we'll have you back again.
Oh, thank you. I'd be more than happy to come back, and it was been a wonderful experience.
Great. Well, we enjoyed having you. Magpie Girl, as usual, just the pure professional.
Thank you, GC, and thanks for taking over in the very important principal role tonight.
That's right. Well, Mighty T's held up with some technical problems at work, so I don't think he'll be fretting about losing his job. Laurie, thanks for running the dials again.
No problem, thank you.
And don't switch off now, because we've got a gem. It's TD's rant to follow.
Well, my rant for round 2 podcast against Ella is the lack of media attention that Collingwood got after the first round win against the Brisbane Lions. It was a big win. We were playing against our ex-star Beams, a team that had beaten us, destroyed us in our last game, like last year when we had all those injuries. And to have humidity, the absolute hot, sticky humidity that was like 95%, 95% up in Queensland, and we held on because Brisbane came really hard. But I would have thought at least there'd be a mention, but in the media, TV shows. But I was there. Collingwood won. Yeah, it was a good win. And Adams and Grundy having such good games. These two boys play really good games. And I thought, at least got a mention. Grundy got a bit of a mention. Both got mentions in the news in the paper, which was good. But nothing on the TV shows. Just like, oh yeah, they had a couple of games. But I guess you could say they should back it up first. But it was a very good, promising start that again didn't get mentioned. But it shows you one thing: the Collingwood news is front page news, and Collingwood good news is in the middle of the sports area. It's a bit of a wrap up. Yes, it was a good win. Blah blah blah. Well, that's what it is. This is how it is. But this makes me pissed off that we've forgotten about it.